Have you ever stopped to observe how others perceive you? Not from the surface, but from the deepest place, where words are unnecessary and all that remains is the energy you project. It's easy to overlook that we are not seen for what we say, not even for what we do, but for what we are in essence. And yet, we live in a world where most people settle for being just another one, for occupying a space, for meeting others' expectations. But you are not here for that. You are here because deep, inside, you know you were not born to be a simple option, but to become something that others consider irreplaceable, unmatched, a true luxury. The path to that transformation is not easy. It's not about adding external things to your life or building a facade to impress others. It's about looking inward and facing the greatest challenge of all, knowing yourself. Because you cannot be a luxury if you don't know what makes you unique. Maybe you've never thought about it before, but there is something inside you that no one else has. That combination of experiences, talents, thoughts, and emotions that, if explored honestly, can become your greatest strength. Most people never stop to explore that uniqueness because they are too busy trying to fit in, following a script that others wrote for them. But you are not here to be like everyone else. You are here to discover what makes you different and to cultivate that difference as the most valuable gift you can offer the world. Imagine, for a moment, that inside you there is a seed that has never been touched by doubt or fear, a seed that contains all the potential of who you can become. But that seed cannot flourish if you do not decide to care for it, if you do not dare to dig into the soil of your interior, to face the roots of your fears, your insecurities, the limiting ideas you have carried for years. How many times have you felt like you were not enough, like you didn't have what it takes to stand out? Those moments are not accidents. They are reminders that your essence is calling to be discovered. Because behind every feeling of emptiness, there is a truth waiting to be found. Most people live in a state of disconnection with themselves, seeking outside what has always been inside. But the real difference, what makes someone perceived as unique, lies in their ability to look at themselves without filters, without excuses, without fear. When you begin to explore who you really are, you discover parts of yourself that you had ignored, talents you had underestimated, and aspects of your personality that you thought were flaws, but are actually what make you authentic. It's not about changing who you are, but about expanding it, removing the layers that have kept you small, that have convinced you that you have nothing special to offer. Think of a rough diamond. When you find it, it doesn't look like much. Its beauty is hidden under a layer of imperfections, but those who know how to look beyond the surface see its potential. They know that with the right work, that diamond can become something everyone desires. You are that diamond, and although the polishing work can be uncomfortable, even painful, it is the only way to reveal the brilliance that has always been there. But that work will not be done by anyone else. It depends on you to decide whether you remain just another option or become a luxury. Becoming a luxury does not mean being inaccessible or arrogant. It means being so authentic and true to yourself that others cannot help but see you as something extraordinary. It means being aware of your value, not in a superficial way, but from a deep place where you understand that what you have to offer cannot be replicated. But to reach that place, you first have to confront the parts of yourself that you have been avoiding, the parts that tell you that you are not good enough, that you don't have what it takes, that there will always be someone better. Those voices are like shadows that cover your light, and as long as you let them rule your life, you will continue to be just an option. Because the truth is this: others will value you to the extent that you value yourself. But what does it really mean to value yourself? It's not just looking in the mirror and repeating positive affirmations. It's a much deeper process. It's looking at your achievements and your failures with the same acceptance, embracing your strengths and also your vulnerabilities. Understanding that what you have lived, no matter how painful or insignificant it may seem, has a purpose. Every experience, every fall, every success is a brick with which you will build something unique. But to do so, you have to be willing to stop comparing yourself, to let go of the need to fit in, and to start living from your truth. Society has taught us that to stand out, we must compete, be the best, surpass others, but that will only lead you to a place of exhaustion. True luxury does. Not compete. True luxury simply is. It's like a tree growing in the middle of the forest. It doesn't worry about being taller than the other trees. It simply grows to its fullest expression, and in that growth, it becomes something worthy of admiration. The same happens with you. You are not here to compete. You are here to grow into your most authentic version. When you start living from that place, something changes. Your presence feels different. You no longer need to convince anyone of your value because your energy communicates it on its own. People begin to see you as someone who cannot be replaced, not because you do more than others, but because you are more yourself than ever. That is the key. It's not about doing, but about being, about allowing yourself to exist in a way so honest and transparent that others cannot help but be attracted to your authenticity. Authenticity is a magnet, but it is also a challenge because being authentic means being willing to show yourself as you are, even when you know that some will not understand you. It means trusting that what you have to offer will be enough for those who are meant to value it. And it means accepting that not everyone will, and that's okay. Not everyone can appreciate a luxury, because not everyone is ready for it. But that does not mean you should change who you are to fit into others' expectations. I want you to think about this. If you were not you, if you were observing yourself from the outside, what would you see? Would you see someone who is living from their essence, or someone who is trying to be what others want them to be? That is an uncomfortable but necessary question because you cannot become a luxury if you are not willing to be honest with yourself. And honesty is not always pleasant. Sometimes it means admitting that you have been living a life that is not yours, that you have let fear dictate your decisions, that you have forgotten who you really are. But that honesty is also liberating because once you accept where you are, you can start moving towards where you really want to be. Every time you choose to know yourself a little more, every time you decide to let go of what no longer serves you, you get closer to that version of yourself that is unique, irreplaceable, and extraordinary. And when you finally allow yourself to be that version, the world notices because the world is full of options, but very few dare to be a luxury. And you, if you are willing to do the work, can be one of them. Have you ever wondered how the energy you emanate impacts the way others perceive you? Not the energy of your superficial actions, but that invisible force that transcends words, that is felt before you say or do anything. That energy is your true footprint and determines whether others see you as someone ordinary or as something exceptional. But here is the challenge. To transform that energy and become a magnet of admiration, you must first transform yourself. You cannot project what does not inhabit your interior. You cannot pretend to shine if inside you carry doubts, insecurities, or resentments that extinguish your light. Everything begins in that invisible space within you where your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs originate. It is there where you build or destroy your personal power. Imagine for a moment that your energy is like an inner fire. There are those who allow that fire to go out, letting external circumstances suffocate it with fear or frustration. Others, on the other hand, decide to protect and feed that fire, turning it into a flame so powerful that it illuminates not only their path, but also that of those around them. That flame cannot be manufactured or faked. It is the direct reflection of how you choose to treat yourself and the relationship you have with your deepest self. When you talk about transforming your energy, it's not about igniting a fleeting spark that impresses for a moment, but about lighting a constant flame that others can feel even when you are not present. But for that flame to burn, you must release everything that suffocates it. Ask yourself how many times you have allowed doubt to extinguish your confidence. How many times the fear of not being enough has held back your true expression. Those thoughts are nothing more than shadows projected by your mind, and as long as you hold on to them, your energy will reflect that insecurity. You do not need others to believe in you to start transforming your energy. You need to be the one who decides to break with those patterns that have kept you small. The energy of someone who is seen as a luxury has nothing to do with arrogance. It is the serene confidence of someone who has done the internal work of knowing and accepting themselves completely. It is a type of magnetism that is not built with external strategies but emanates from a deep place of congruence. But getting there involves a process that is neither linear nor easy. It requires you to face parts of yourself that you do not always want to see, those beliefs that you have carried for years and that, without realizing it, keep you in a state of scarcity. Scarcity is not just the absence of resources. It is the perception that you are never enough, that there is always something missing for you to be valued. But the truth is that this perception has no roots in reality, but in the narrative you have told yourself about yourself. When you start to question those stories and replace them with truths more aligned with your essence, something changes. You no longer need to prove your value. You simply embody it. You no longer compete for attention because your presence speaks for itself. Visualize a crystal-clear lake at the top of a mountain. Its surface is serene, undisturbed, reflecting everything around it with impressive clarity. That is the image of transformed energy, something so pure and authentic that it does not need to seek validation because its own existence is enough. That lake does not try to be anything else. It simply is. But its serenity and depth inspire those who approach it. Now imagine what would happen if the lake were constantly agitated, full of debris or polluted. It would lose its reflection, its beauty, its impact. That is the difference between energy charged with internal chaos and transformed energy. You decide which one to project. It is true that we live in a world that seems to feed on agitation. Social media, commitments, expectations. Everything seems to push you to move faster, do more, be more. But here is the paradox. The more you disconnect from your center to please others or meet what the world expects of you, the weaker your energy becomes. Transforming yourself internally does not mean isolating yourself from the world, but learning to interact with it from a place of strength, not need, from a place where your peace is non-negotiable. The process of transforming your energy is not something that happens overnight. It is a path of small, daily acts that build a solid relationship with yourself. It's not just about what you do, but how you do it. Every thought you choose to feed, every decision you make, every emotion you allow yourself to feel is like a brick in the construction of your inner power. And when you commit to building from authenticity, the results are inevitable. People begin to notice something different in you, something they cannot explain, but that attracts them naturally. Some might call it charisma, others presence. But what they are really seeing is the reflection of someone who has aligned with themselves. That alignment is not perfect or constant, but it is honest. It's not about never feeling fear or doubt, but learning not to let those emotions define who you are. Because when you become the master of your energy, negative emotions do not disappear, but they stop having the power to govern you. You decide which part of you will lead the way. Imagine for a moment that your energy is like a melody. There are melodies that are barely perceived, that go unnoticed in the noise. But there are others that resonate so deeply that you cannot ignore them. That melody has its own vibration, its own harmony, and when someone listens to it, they feel something different. That's what happens when you transform your energy. You stop being just another note in the background noise and become a melody that cannot be ignored. That melody does not need to be perfect. It just needs to be authentic. At this point, you might wonder how to start working on that transformation. There is no single path or magic formula, but there is something constant. The willingness to stop, look inward, and observe what kind of energy you are cultivating. Maybe you will discover that there are patterns you need to let go of, wounds you have not yet healed, beliefs that no longer serve you. That process can be uncomfortable, but it is the price of freedom. True transformation never happens in comfort. Inner power is not something achieved in a moment of inspiration. It is the result of a daily commitment to yourself. It is the result of choosing again and again to be authentic in a world that constantly asks you to be something else. It is the result of giving yourself permission to fail, to grow, to be imperfect, and still valuable. Because the energy of someone who is seen as a luxury does not depend on what others think, but on what they know they are. When your energy is aligned with that truth, you do not need to speak louder or make more noise to be heard. People feel that strength before you open your mouth. They feel that there is something in you that cannot be copied or replicated because it comes from a unique place. That is the essence of being a luxury. Not being something that anyone can find, but being something that anyone would want to keep. The world is full of options, of people who settle for the minimum, who live on the surface, who do not dare to look beyond. But you are not just another option. You have the capacity to be something that others truly value, something that inspires, something that transforms. That capacity is there, waiting to be awakened. The question is, are you willing to do the work? Because if you do, I assure you that your energy will not only transform how others see you, but also how you see yourself. And when that happens, you will stop being an option and become something that simply cannot be ignored. Have you ever stopped to think about everything you pursue, that feeling that you need more, that there is something out there that, if only you had it, would finally make you feel complete? It's easy to get caught up in that endless race, believing that happiness, security, or success are just one step away, one more effort, one more achievement. But that cycle is nothing more than a trap, an illusion that keeps you away from the true power you have within you. And that is the paradox. The more you seek something from need, the more you push it away because the desire born from lack can never fill the void that generates it. Everything you think you need is already inside you, but to realize it, you have to break with the mentality that has taught you otherwise. It's not your fault if you have learned to measure your value by what you have or what you do. It's what we have been taught, that abundance is something that is earned, that depends on something external. But the truth is that abundance is not something that is found. It is something that is chosen. It is an internal state that has nothing to do with what you possess, but with what you are. It's not about how much you have, but how you feel about yourself. Imagine for a moment that your life is like a river. There is a natural flow designed to carry you forward, towards what truly belongs to you. But that flow can only operate when you trust, when you stop fighting against the current and allow the water to guide you. The problem is that most of the time, instead of flowing, you try to control the river. You build mental dams made of fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs that block the passage of water. You cling to control, thinking that if you do not direct every aspect, everything will crumble. But control is just an illusion, and the more you cling to it, the more you disconnect from the power that comes from flowing with life. The most powerful change you can make does not happen outside but inside, in your perception. Because abundance is not about accumulating, but about recognizing that you already have everything you need to be complete. It's a change in how you experience life, in how you look at what surrounds you, and how you look at yourself. Have you noticed how people who seem to have magnetic energy, who radiate confidence and tranquility, are not obsessed with proving their worth? That's not a coincidence. It's because they have stopped seeking outside what they have already found inside. And that inner peace, that certainty, is what makes them irresistible, because true abundance cannot be faked. It is felt. Need, on the other hand, is like a bottomless pit. No matter how much you try to fill it, something will always be missing. That's what happens when you pursue something from lack. It's never enough. If you pursue recognition because you don't feel valued, no matter how much you achieve it, there will always be a part of you that doubts your worth. If you seek love from a place of insecurity, even when you find it, you will be afraid of losing it. And so the cycle continues, because what you seek is not outside. It's in healing that part of you that feels something is missing. But letting go of the scarcity mentality does not mean giving up your dreams or desires. It does not mean settling. It means changing the energy from which you relate to them, because when you stop seeking from need, you start attracting from fullness. And that's where the magic happens. Things that once seemed unattainable begin to flow towards you, not because you are desperately pursuing them, but because you have aligned with them. The external world is a reflection of your internal world. If inside you are full of doubts, you will attract experiences that reinforce those doubts. But if you cultivate an energy of trust and gratitude, the universe responds at the same frequency. Think about what it really feels like to live from fullness. It's like walking barefoot on the sand, feeling each step with such an authentic connection that you don't need anything else to be happy. It doesn't mean you don't have goals or aspirations. It means those goals do not define your value. They are a complement, not a condition for your happiness. Fullness is knowing that even if nothing changes, you are already enough. It's liberating because it gives you the security that you don't need to impress anyone or meet external expectations to feel valuable. In that state, abundance becomes inevitable, because when you no longer need something, you stop projecting the energy of lack that pushes it away. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. If you close your fists too tightly, the water escapes. But if you leave your hands open, the water stays. The same happens with desires. The more you pursue them from a place of lack, the more resistance you create. But when you trust, when you let go, what is meant for you comes naturally. This does not mean you sit and wait for everything to happen without action. The difference is in how you take those actions. Are you acting from a place of anxiety, trying to control every detail, or from a place of trust, knowing that everything you do from your authenticity will be aligned with what you really need? That is the true key. Trust in yourself, in the process, in that what is meant for you cannot be lost. That trust is the foundation of abundance, but trusting requires courage. It requires letting go of the fear of failure, the fear of not being enough, the fear of the unknown. It's an act of faith in yourself, in your ability to adapt, to learn, to grow, because life will not always follow the script you have in mind. There will be times when things do not go as expected, when it seems like you are going backwards, but even in those moments, abundance is there if you choose to see it, because every challenge, every loss, every detour is an opportunity to rediscover your inner power. Abundance is not the absence of problems, but the ability to face them from a place of strength and peace. As you begin to live from this mentality, something changes, not only in you, but in how others perceive you. People are attracted to those who radiate fullness because deep down, everyone seeks that feeling. Being someone who lives from abundance does not mean having everything figured out, but being a reminder that fullness is possible, that it's not about what you have, but how you choose to experience life. All this may sound abstract, but it has a very practical application. Every time you find yourself feeling that something is missing, stop. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, look at what is already there. That gratitude is not just an exercise, it's a way to transform your energy. It's a reminder that even as you continue to grow, you are already complete, that you don't need to be more to be enough. And when you realize that, everything changes because you stop pursuing and start attracting. And in that dynamic shift, you discover that life is not about having, but about being. It is possible that you do not realize it, but every decision you make, every action you choose, speaks of the standards you have set for your life. And the most impactful thing is that those standards not only determine how you live, but also how the world responds to you. The way others perceive you is not defined by what you say or promise, but by what you allow, by what you tolerate, by the invisible lines you draw to define who you are and what you are willing to accept. Those lines are not negotiable if you seek to be seen as something extraordinary, as someone who cannot be ignored. A luxury is not available to everyone. It is not found on every corner. It is not easily delivered. And that exclusivity is not something that is said. It is something that is felt. The same happens with you. The standards you set in your life are like a silent language that communicates to others how deeply you value yourself, how firm your conviction is that you deserve more. Have you stopped to think about what you are communicating with what you accept in your relationships, in your work, in your daily life? Every time you ignore a lack of respect, accept less than what you know you deserve, you are lowering those lines, softening the edges of your essence, allowing the extraordinary in you to dilute into the ordinary. Living with high standards does not mean being rigid or uncompromising. It's not about building barriers, but creating a safe space where only what truly elevates your life has a place. It's like a garden. If you let everything in without control, It will soon be invaded by weeds that will choke the flowers you are trying so hard to cultivate. But if you care for that garden, if you consciously choose what you allow in, you create a space where what blooms is beautiful, vibrant, and full of life. You are that garden, and the boundaries you set are the care that ensures that what makes you special is not lost. There are those who fear setting standards because they believe it will make them lose connections, opportunities, or acceptance. But here is the truth. Those who truly value you will not walk away because you stand up for yourself. Those who leave because you do not accept less than you deserve were never meant to stay, and that is not a loss. It is a gain, because every time you choose to raise your standards, you attract people and experiences that are aligned with your true value. It is an act of purification, a way to release the weight of what is not designed to walk with you forward. It's not just about what you accept from others, but what you accept from yourself. Every time you postpone your dreams, every time you choose the easy way instead of the right way, you are sending a message to the world that you do not fully trust your ability to achieve something greater. And life will always respond to you according to that message. The universe does not negotiate with insecurity, but it aligns magically with those who have the courage to draw clear boundaries, not from arrogance, but from the clarity of knowing what they are and what they are not willing to be. Imagine for a moment that you are a lighthouse in the middle of a dark ocean. Your light is not designed to convince all the ships to come to you, but to guide those who are destined to find your port. That light does not need to shout. It does not need to justify its place on the horizon. It simply shines. But if that lighthouse allows its light to go out, for fear of not being seen, or for exhausting itself trying to illuminate everything at once, it loses its purpose. It loses its essence. You are that lighthouse, and your standards are the intensity with which you decide to shine. It's easy to think that setting boundaries is an act of separation, but it's quite the opposite. It's an act of love, first towards yourself and consequently towards others, because only from a place of respect and clarity can you offer the best of yourself. Setting standards does not mean being inaccessible. It means being aware that not everyone can or should access you, and that does not make you selfish. It makes you selective, and selectivity is what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Have you noticed how certain people seem to have an aura around them, a presence that makes them stand out effortlessly? That presence is not something they were born with. It is the result of how they have chosen to live, of the standards they have set and are not willing to compromise. That energy, that magnetism, does not come from being complacent or available at all times. It comes from being clear, coherent, from living in such solid alignment with their internal value that the world has no choice but to recognize it. The key is coherence. You cannot set a standard in one part of your life and allow the opposite in another. You cannot demand respect if you do not respect yourself. You cannot attract something authentic if you live in incongruity. Your standards are not just words or occasional decisions. They are a constant reflection of how you choose to show yourself to the world. They are the foundation on which you build your identity and your impact. And that impact is felt not because you say it, but because you live it. The challenge is that setting and maintaining high standards can sometimes feel like a solitary act, but that solitude is not a punishment. It is a filter. It is a space that allows you to observe, reflect, and remember that you are not seeking quantity, but quality. It is in those moments of apparent emptiness where your strength is reinforced, where you realize that you do not need the noise to feel complete, that your value does not depend on how many people walk beside you, but on how you choose to walk with yourself. Every time you choose to raise your standards, something inside you transforms. You begin to walk with a different security, not because everything is resolved, but because you trust that what you are building is solid. That trust is what makes others perceive you as someone who cannot be ignored, as a luxury that is not within everyone's reach. But that perception cannot be built from the outside in. It can only be born from constant internal work, from a daily decision to be faithful to what you really are. Transformation is not a final destination. It is not a place you reach and decide that you are done. It is a continuous process, a journey in which there is always more to discover, more to adjust, more to polish. And that should not discourage you. It should inspire you, because every step on that path brings you closer to a version of yourself that is authentic, that is magnetic, that is irreplaceable. The standards you choose today are the roots of what will flourish tomorrow, and those roots cannot be superficial. They need depth. They need care. They need an unwavering commitment to yourself. Because the world does not need more people who settle. It needs more people who live with courage, who dare to be different, who are not afraid to rise, even if it means leaving behind what no longer fits in their life. You do not need to tell the world who you are. You need to show it. And every time you decide not to accept less, every time you choose to live with integrity and clarity, you are leaving a mark that cannot be ignored, because the extraordinary does not need explanation, it simply is. And you, if you are willing to live from that place, have the power to become something that cannot be replaced. Sophistication is not something that is bought or learned, it is something that is cultivated from within. It is the subtle combination between your purest authenticity and the constant commitment to refine who you are. But what does it really mean to be authentic? It's not simply showing yourself as you are, without filters or masks. True authenticity demands that you look at yourself head-on, that you confront not only what you love about yourself, but also what makes you uncomfortable, what you would like to hide. And it's not enough to accept those parts. You have to learn to integrate them, to turn them into strength instead of weakness. Only then can you build a presence that not only stands out, but inspires. It's easy to think that sophistication has to do with the external, with language, appearance, gestures. But none of that matters if it is not aligned with what you really are. Congruence is the key. Imagine a river that flows without interruptions, clean, clear, in total harmony with the terrain that surrounds it. That's how someone feels who has found that perfect blend between authenticity and evolution. Every word they say, every action they take, reflects a commitment to themselves that is impossible to ignore. But to reach that place, you need to be willing to abandon what does not belong to you. Many of us carry expectations, beliefs, and behaviors that we never consciously chose, but that we allow to define who we are. It's like wearing a suit that was not made to measure, something that, although it may work, will never allow you to move freely. Refining means first stripping yourself of everything that does not reflect your truth. And it's not an easy process, because often what you have used to fit in has become part of your identity. But you cannot be a luxury while you continue to carry what keeps you small. Sophistication is also a matter of intention. It's not about doing everything perfectly, but doing it with purpose. Every word you choose, every decision you make should be imbued with a deeper meaning, because it is that intention that gives weight and significance to your actions. People do not remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel, and that feeling, that imprint, comes from the connection between what you are and how you choose to share it with the world. An authentic presence is not built by trying to please everyone. It is built from a place of truth, from the courage to show yourself complete, even in your imperfection. Because authenticity is not synonymous with perfection. It is synonymous with honesty. When people feel that there are no masks, that what they see is real, their perception changes. They no longer see you as just another person in the crowd, but as someone who stands out simply because they dare to be. That authenticity, combined with a conscious intention to evolve, creates something powerful. It's not a sudden change. It's not an instant revolution. It's a constant refinement. It's like polishing a stone that you know contains something precious inside. Every small adjustment, every moment of reflection, every decision to let go of what no longer serves you brings you closer to your purest essence. And that, although it is a process, is what really makes the difference. Because you are not seeking to reach a place. You are learning to walk with more clarity, with more purpose, with more confidence in what you are. Do not underestimate the impact of small gestures, the way you greet, the way you look at others, the way you listen, the way you present yourself. Everything speaks of you. Every detail counts, not because you should obsess over them, but because they are natural reflections of your essence. You do not need to do more. You just need to be more yourself in a way that is so clear and genuine that others cannot ignore it. Being a luxury is not about being unattainable. It's about being unforgettable. And that is not achieved with grandiosity, but with authenticity, with a sophistication that does not shout but leaves a lasting impression. The impact you have on others does not come from what you do to impress. It comes from what you are and how you choose to show it. And that choice, although it may seem simple, has the power to change everything. It's not about how much you achieve or how many eyes are on you, but about the depth with which you walk your own path. Being a luxury, being irreplaceable, is not something that others decide for you. It is something that you decide to be in every moment. It has nothing to do with titles, achievements, or appearances, but with the connection you have with yourself, with that quiet certainty that your value is not in what you do, but in who you are when no one is watching. Visualize for a moment a flame that burns calmly but strongly. It does not flicker or let itself be extinguished by the winds that blow around it. That flame does not need to be large to illuminate. It simply exists, and in its existence, it transforms everything it touches. That's how your essence is when you connect with what you truly are. A presence that does not shout but fills spaces with an energy that cannot be ignored. It's the kind of presence that leaves a mark, not because you seek to stand out, but because there is no way for something authentic to go unnoticed. Perhaps you have felt that to be valued, you must strive more, prove more, achieve more, but that is not the path. True luxury is not found in what is accumulated, but in what is released, in the ability to let go of the need for approval, to abandon constant comparison, to stop trying to be everything to everyone. Because the more you free yourself, the more space you create for the authentic to emerge. And when you live from that place, others feel it. They do not need you to explain it to them. They know it because authenticity has its own language, one that everyone recognizes, even if they do not know how to put it into words. Every moment is an invitation to be more of what you already are, not because something is missing, but because there is always more to discover within you. It's not about reaching a final state, but about continuing to strip away what you are not, what you no longer need. And in that process, you become something that cannot be defined, something that cannot be contained in a category. You become a force that inspires, not because you seek to do so, but because you dare to be. Luxury is not a destination. It is a way of walking through life. It is a decision you make every day. The decision not to compromise with anything that does not reflect your truth. The decision to be whole in every interaction. The decision to look inward and find there everything that the world once made you believe you had to seek outside. And as you continue walking with that certainty, you will discover that not only are you seen as something unique, but you begin to see yourself as what you have always been, someone who did not need to be more than authentic to be extraordinary.